Hi, my name is Andre, and our DWH group is going to be doing Big Picture, Wars of Independence in Latin America.
I'm Vinny.
I'm Jose.
I'm Mathiana.
I'm Janelle.
And I'm Hannah McAmoyle.
To begin, I will be talking about Latin American society during the Age of Revolution. Revolutionary ideals traveled to the Iberian colonies from beyond Saint Domingue. Society was mainly governed by peninsulares, those Spanish and Portuguese born on the mainland. Under the peninsulares were the Creoles, those born in the Americas but were of Spanish and Portuguese descent. There were approximately 30,000 peninsulares and 3.5 million Creoles in Latin America. Underneath them were the less privileged classes such as the indigenous people and mixed races, such as the mestizos and mulattoes. In the picture, it shows the social order in Latin America with the peninsulares at the top and African American and mulattoes at the bottom. Brazil had a large population of African American slaves. The next picture shows how peninsulares made up very little of the population while indigenous people and Creoles made up the most.
Creoles benefited greatly during the 18th century as they established plantations and ranches in the colonies and participated in rapidly expanding trade with Spain and Portugal. Yet, the Creoles also had grievances. Like British colonists in North America, the Creoles resented administrative control and economic regulations imposed by the Iberian powers. They drew inspiration from Enlightenment political thought and occasionally took part in tax revolts and popular uprisings. The Creoles desired neither social reform like that promoted by Robespierre nor the establishment of an egalitarian society like Haiti. Basically, they sought to displace the peninsulares but retain their privileged position in society. Between 1810 and 1825, Creoles led movements that brought independence to all Spanish colonies in the Americas, except Cuba and Puerto Rico, and established Creole-dominated republics.
Brothers, sisters, this rule is corrupt. Let us people reject colonial rule.
Hidalgo, you're executed.
Oh no!
The fight for Mexican independence began when Napoleon invaded Spain and Portugal, which weakened authority in Iberian colonies. The biggest revolt was led by a priest Miguel de Hidalgo, who gathered indigenous people and mestizos to rebel. After being executed, he became the symbol of Mexican independence, and the proclamation of his revolt, September 16, 1810, is still a Mexican holiday.
Everyone, I declare independence. We will no longer be ruled by the Spanish. I will now make my own empire.
Colonial rule of Spain came to an end when Agustín de Iturbide proclaimed independence. He was later displaced by Creole elites, and the southern regions of Mexico, including Guatemala, El Salvador, Honduras, Nicaragua, and Costa Rica, formed a Central American Federation but split apart in 1838.
Born in Caracas, also known as modern-day Venezuela, was a Creole elite named Simón Bolívar. He was a passionate Republican interested in Enlightenment ideas about popular sovereignty. His interest in Western ideas, such as examples of George Washington, inspired him to fight against Spanish rule, which unfortunately failed several times and even brought him to exile twice. However, by 1819, he assembled an army strong enough to crush the Spanish army in Colombia. He then continued campaigning at Venezuela, Ecuador, and Peru with other Creole leaders like José de San Martín in Argentina and Bernardo Higgins in Chile. Bolívar's goal was to combine the former Spanish colonies of South America, so he tried to combine Peru and Bolivia with the Gran Colombia, which is basically a republic that included Venezuela, Colombia, and Ecuador. However, due to the political and regional differences, Gran Colombia eventually disintegrated. So Bolívar gave up, pronounced South America as ungovernable, and said that those who have served revolution have plowed the sea. On his way to Europe, he dies of tuberculosis.
Another state that gained independence was Brazil. The Portuguese have been colonizing since the 1500s. In 1807, Napoleon invaded Portugal, and the royal court fled and established a government in exile in Rio de Janeiro. In 1821, the king returned to Portugal, and he left his son Pedro in Brazil as a regent. In 1822, Brazilian Creoles called for independence from Portugal, and Pedro agreed to their demands. The Portuguese Cortes, which is their parliament, tried to curtail Pedro's power. But on September 7, 1822, he declared Brazil's independence, and he became emperor. Their formal treaty was signed between Brazil and Portugal in the late 1825.
Creoles were people of European or African descent born in Latin America. Initially, Creoles were kept out of important roles in society. In the 18th century, Spanish immigrants, called Peninsulares, had financial success with business in the neighboring colonies. With the destruction of the colonial regime, the Creoles entered the ruling class. Even though Brazil was able to achieve independence, Creole elites played a prominent role in Brazil's society. The Peninsulares returned to Spain, leaving behind a society predominantly led by the Creoles. In the independent states, military power was given to the native strongmen who were closely aligned with Creole elites. Although Brazil found independence, the Creole elites reaped the most benefits from the changes in Latin America.